Welcome to MRE Uncut, where we'll give you real and practical insights into the real estate scene in Melbourne. We'll discuss what's happening in the industry, all backed by MRE's history of over 30 years in the game. With that said, let's jump into this week's episode of MRE Uncut.
Welcome back to another MRE podcast. My name's Steve Fitzsimon. Today I'm with Memphis Middleton.
Hi.
And I've also got Annie Gillan.
Hello.
And Memphis and Annie, two of our business development managers at MRE, been with the team for quite some time. And they have been chatting in the office about takeover of managements when an owner is choosing to move from a current agent to MRE and the experiences that they've been having. And so we thought we'd have a chat about that to see what's involved, how it works, and then also some of the challenges that are associated with the transition. Annie, when can an owner change agencies if they're unsatisfied?
They can change whenever they want, but I think it's a bit of a 50-50 split why they're changing. It's if we've contacted them or if they've contacted us, which changes the conversation. They're either unhappy or they don't know what's they're missing out on with their property. So a lot of owners think they have to wait till the end of the term to finish with the tenancy and move agents, but they can move whenever they want. It doesn't cost anything. We'll handle everything for them.
Memphis, what about the exclusive period though?
Exclusive period that lasts during the leasing terms, just so that no other agents have their, properties online while we have it online at the same time. So after the period that you agree on, it could either be 30, 60 or 90 days. Then they're free to move. There's no fixed managing period unless, you read the fine print. There could be, or there could be exit costs.
It's pretty rare though.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you're sitting there as an owner today and you've got a property and you're thinking, my agent I'm not happy with, they can effectively contact another agency, sign a new agreement and change over. How long would it take for an agent to change from an owner to change from one agency to another, Annie?
Depends on the other agency sometimes. For us, we'll notify them within minutes and provide them the list of what we need, and it's up to them how long they take to send over the documents. All we need is the authority to be the agents immediately. It's just a case of getting the documents and being able to notify the tenants.
So, Memphis, what's a good outcome?
Look, 24 hours is generally fantastic, but give or take, we generally give about 3 business days. But we would prefer it straight away.
But it's not a lengthy thing that we're looking at a month to change from one agency to another. This is something that happens over the course of a week, you could say roughly.
Easily.
And it could be even faster than that. So when you are in the circumstance where you've made a call, you've changed to another agent, what does an owner need to do, Annie, in terms of how much of a role do they have to play in that?
I find this is often what they dread. They don't want to do much, and so that's why it can be challenging to convince them sometimes. But all they need to do is sign an authority with us. That gives us the ability to contact the other agent. We'll handle those conversations and it's done.
Okay, so basically they sign the form and then they're done and you take over. Memphis, you were mentioning before we send an email with a list of things. Let's say that arrives after 3 days and you've got that. What are your, when you're looking at that list or what comes across, what have you seen in the last few months that we were talking about in terms of what doesn't come across?
Look, it's a mix of things. Sometimes it can be lots. Usually it's the entry condition report. Routine inspections sometimes get forgotten. Applications get left out as well, which, is beneficial for the owner for insurance purposes and for us as well.
Right. So let's look at these in a little bit more depth. If we get a file, Annie, let's say that it's missing a condition report, what's that mean for us and for the rental provider and for the renter?
Good for the renter, bad for us and the rental provider. It means we can't claim anything from the bond. If you've got nothing to prove the condition of the property when they moved in, how do you justify that they put the scratch on the wall or stained the carpets? Even if it's a new build, you've got no legs to stand on. So makes it very difficult. Also, when we're doing the routine inspections, we can't comment on how they are keeping the property because
you don't know what
they might have moved
before,
in and it was in that condition.
Right. So you're like, you take over management, you don't have a condition report. That's a disaster really in terms of where you're at. and then you go to the property and it's in poor condition,
Mm.
I can imagine that that's leaving some owners.
Oh, it's a tough conversation to have, yeah, obviously. And then taking on the mistakes of other agents as well, it becomes, really upsetting for the owner to hear.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And then things like key images, what's
Mm.
the consequence, Memphis, in terms of like not having a key image?
Oh, well, you just don't know what keys were given to the renters. You don't know if they're the correct ones that are given back then.
So then you're going back through to trying to find keys that perhaps were given, but we don't have evidence of.
No, and then chasing
Therefore,
up a previous agent or the renter as well. It's kind of hearsay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, yeah. Okay. So we've got some significant challenges if the documentation isn't done right,
Mhm.
in terms of the handover from one to another. If we look at like why the owners are shifting, Memphis, what are you seeing as sort of like the most common trends in terms of?
Most common trend that I'm feeling from owners is, where's my maintenance at? I haven't heard back from my
So
agent.
maintenance.
Yeah.
So then they're not hearing the steps in terms
Yeah.
of doing maintenance. They're lost.
They hear that maintenance has been reported, but then after that, no idea. Don't know
Right.
what's been installed, just got the approval, and then they don't know if it's been, fitted properly, anything.
Right. So they're basically being asked to spend money, spending it, and then not knowing what's sort of happened.
Exactly.
To it. Yeah. Annie?
I think we're in a fortunate position that we can justify our fees, but to owners where they've got a property that's not problematic, they don't understand why they're paying those fees until they're not paying them. I had one this week. We used to manage the property. The owner was paying our fees. Nothing was wrong with the property. Tenant's been in there for 5 years. An agency in country Victoria reached out to expand their portfolio and offered them a 3 or 4% management fee. So they thought nothing's going wrong. We never have to go to the property. Let's move over. Just a few months later, they've called back saying they didn't realise what they were missing out on, coming back to their original fees, didn't even try to negotiate.
Right. So in that instance, what was their problem? Was it that the service was not there?
She made it so clear they had no problem. There was just no problem with the property that they could see. So why would they not halve their costs, which is what they were doing?
Well, that makes sense
Yeah.
in terms of that. But then what they found out that if
They
you halve
halve
the
their
costs, you're
service.
halving
Yeah.
the service or less than.
Well, OC levies weren't being paid, routine inspections weren't being done because they were in the
Wow.
country.
Yeah.
So many things. And that's all that she mentioned. But when we got the documents, we had to go back to our server to see where the documents were because the agency that we took the property back off didn't have them. So
Right. So we gave them
mess
the
around.
documents
Yeah.
at the time of
They misplaced
taking
them.
over management. Then they've been misplaced. Then we come back 4 months later
And retrieve them from our lost
we have to
files.
retrieve them because they can't provide them to us.
as simple as the tenant's contact details.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
They never had to contact the tenant. So
So we
Because they
didn't-
never went
Yeah.
for a routine, of course.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that's
that was a good one.
Yeah.
Easy
Welcome
one.
back.
yeah. That's well, like you can understand the logic.
Yeah.
Mm.
We get a lot of owners that sort of say, "Oh, I just want you to find a tenant," and the response there is a challenging one because it's finding a really good tenant paying the absolute peak of market. If we were just doing that, we'd have to charge a super high price for our letting fee because that's where you
Yeah.
invest it. But when you're taking over, when you've got a great tenant and there is no problems, you can be tempted to save a little bit of money on the day to day, but obviously it can come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. So we've got missing documentation in the takeovers. We've got owners that are frustrated about maintenance, owners that are frustrated about service. You mentioned before about whether or not we'd contacted them or they'd contacted us and missing out on something. Can you go into a bit more detail about that?
Yeah, we have a lot of buildings in Melbourne that we are the preferred leasing agents for. And so if we're not managing properties in those buildings, those owners don't realise what we're leasing them for if they're not searching for it. So we've got their contact details. We will sometimes reach out to them when we do have a good result to share. And so they don't think there's anything wrong with their property manager. So why would they reach out to an agency and see what their property's worth? It's only when we tell them, even if it's just via email, that
Prompts them.
yeah.
So essentially they're getting told that they think that because they got a rent increase a bit earlier in
Of
the
$10.
year of $10,
Yeah.
that they think that everything's tracking normally, even though we're in a rental crisis, and then they're assuming that their agent's providing them with good information, but they don't know how to assess that themselves until, Memphis, you get on the phone to them.
Get on the phone and just say, look, hey, we've just had this fantastic result at EQ Tower, leasing 1 bed, 1 bath, similar floor plan to yours. And they go, wow,
Right.
mine's achieving this. And that's when you have to open the conversation and say, when did your agent last assess the market?
Yeah, so not all agents are equal when it comes to service, but they're also not all equal when it comes to rent reviews.
Yeah.
Not all equal when it comes to
Marketing
analysis. Yeah, they might not have the same information that you've got when it comes to making a review. So you're seeing that you've got owners that don't know they're dissatisfied, and they're then being alerted to the challenges that are there, and then you've got the other side that are dissatisfied because they've got all of the problems that are coming in or the lack of work being done for them, and they're sitting there going, I think I have to wait until the end of the tenancy to change, or it's going to be difficult to change agents.
Or change is scary for people too.
Yeah, better the devil
daunting.
you know.
Yeah.
But, financially, have you seen any circumstances recently where an owner has changed from agent A to agent B and been significantly better off financially?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We've taken so many properties over in the last 12 months as well that, rent reviews hadn't been done since COVID. So some properties we've had to give, $130 increase and things like that. Yeah.
So that's $6,500
Yeah.
in rental that's going to be coming into their account because of the fact that there's a more proactive agent that's working on it. Would you call in your experience, right, and you girls are listing 10, 12 properties a month, and in your experience from what you're saying, is that regular? Is that common? Or is it something that you're seeing occasionally?
It is, but it's not even being greedy, because you see the amount of people that are coming to the inspections at the price that we've told them the property's worth. Often they won't believe us because they've been told otherwise. But it's so common. Most of the properties we take on are going over $100 a week more, and they're getting 8 to 10 people at each inspection. So people are choosing to pay it.
Are they fearing losing a good tenant?
Yeah.
They are. So if they're fearing losing a good tenant, justified by, like, let's say, oh no, I don't want to lose my tenant, so therefore I'm $100 a week below the market.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who's thinking like that?
I think that fear doesn't last long, though, when they do come across, because we show them comparable properties and the interest we have had on them. There are a lot of good tenants out there. You don't have such a small pool that you just need to appeal to and stick with the same person. I think it's just showing them what we can do and what is out there.
But if an owner wants to be kind to their tenants, like, we can take the option of being a bit, how would I say it? What's the opposite
Reserved.
of proactive? That's a nice word rather than lazy. I'm just trying to think, in terms of this, if they've been a bit, reserved, let's use that, in terms of their approach, what would you suggest that they do in terms of, like, trying to keep things real while still being considerate of their tenants in a rental crisis?
I think it starts with having a conversation with the renter and seeing what their plans are with the property. If they would be willing to pay the rent increase that you issue, or you do issue it, and see what their feedback is. If they really want to keep that tenant in there, you'll look at that application and see what salary they are on and what they can afford. But it's not always about,
At the end of the day as well, a market increase is where the market's sitting at as well. So basically the conversation would be with the owner as well is, do you want to gift the renter an extra $100 per year and
it's a
lose
nice
that?
present.
Yeah.
It's a trip to Bali.
Otherwise, on the market, there are people that are willing to pay that as well. So you can find another good renter as well.
I think finding a balance is important, especially we're seeing significant increases in interest rates. We've got land tax that's kind of playing a role now. You want to make sure that the renter is paying the market.
Yeah.
And the government's introduced legislation to make sure that, you're not going to the extreme, and rental providers don't take advantage of tenants
properties are up to
by
standard.
doing that.
Yeah.
When they're good properties, then the price is there. So you've got that opportunity to be able to
achieve more.
Yeah. So essentially, if we sort of review this, we're looking at owners that are having difficulty with communication, owners that are having difficulty with procedural issues such as maintenance, routine inspections, etc., not taking place. What would you recommend to an owner if they were wanting to sort of review their personal situation, because obviously there's a few people here, like the comments that you've made, they don't have a condition report. Right. Wouldn't an owner or shouldn't an owner be aware that they don't have a condition report?
They don't. Often they won't ask for those documents because they trust their agents got them,
Exactly.
and they don't know the importance of having those documents.
Right. So this is an education piece, really.
But it's also another trigger that has to happen for us to notice that they don't have a condition report.
You'd also just hope for the best. You think you're employing an agent to do their due
job.
diligence by you. Yeah.
So if you were one of these owners and you just were listening to this and were a bit concerned and horrified that this type of stuff goes on, how do you do some sort of self-reflection on this? Like, should they reach out to their own agents and go, look, could I just get a copy of the condition report?
Shouldn't there be an owner's portal where owners can access all of that?
Well,
It's
true.
stored
There
there.
might be, but perhaps like a lot of owners,
They don't know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. Well, that's true. They don't. So if we gave them a list today, what would you say?
I think the first step is getting an appraisal done again on the property.
Right. So
that's a trigger.
Yeah. Find
That's a
out where
huge
your
trigger.
market's at straight away.
So what do? You call 3 local agents that are there, or where do you, how do you make a decision there? What's the easiest way to get an appraisal on your property? Because how do you know that the other people that you're talking to
Go on
don't know what they're on about?
realestate.com, go and find
Reviews.
agents
Yeah.
and go on
See who's
in
performing.
your suburb and see who's performing, something like that.
So it's looking at volume, and then and so you go on, you find an agent that's performing, you ask them for an assessment of the property, but won't that disturb the tenants that are in there?
Can all be done offline.
Right.
Online. You do it online
Because
just by looking.
the photos of the last
Rental campaign,
Yeah.
surely
they're going
are.
to be there. So in most circumstances, you're going to get pretty close to the rental. You don't need to disturb the tenants, and you're able to then get an understanding of whether or not your price is right. And then if your price is wrong, change, because it's costing you a small fortune.
Yeah.
And if your price is right, then it's do you ask for a copy of the condition report? Like, if you're thinking, oh my God, if I don't have a condition report, I'm starved.
Yeah. I don't see it just as helping the owner, though. You're also helping the renter in the property because you're providing them a better experience as well. Often we're saying to the renters, can you provide us the condition report? We want to give you a fair bond return when you do vacate. But you've also got a more proactive and contactable agent on the case when things do go wrong for them as well. We're in a position to help them rather than just palm it off to whoever else is in the office. It's for both parties, and that's how we do word it to tenants, because it's what it genuinely is for.
So we've got the tenants that are enjoying it when we take over management as opposed to dreading it.
They do. They say, I haven't heard from my agent in months. It's so good to speak to someone.
Especially when we go through the routine check.
I can't believe does this cost money for free? What are you doing?
Right.
And owners actually really appreciate
Yeah.
it too. They're like, wow, you took it over and you're doing a routine check within a week, having a look, familiarising yourself with your renters.
So the triggers then, okay, rent reviews that have only been a small amount.
Yeah.
When was your last routine? They should be every 6 months.
They're not.
Well, this is it. So when was your last return? Ask yourself, if you're listening to this now and you're thinking, okay, when was my last return? If you don't know, find out.
Yeah.
And then find out what the rental is actually worth, because if you're shooting yourself in the foot there, it's only a few emails. And then lastly, it's easy to change.
Very easy. Couldn't make it easier.
Change is free. Change is 100% managed by MRE.
There you go. Love it. Thanks for coming in, Annie and Memphis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks for listening. We'll catch you soon.